Bardo Thödol, Tibetan, Liberation in the Intermediate State Through Hearing, also called Tibetan Book of the Dead, in Tibetan Buddhism, a funerary text that is recited to ease the consciousness of a recently deceased person through death and assist it into a favorable rebirth or ascension. In this video we will learn how to navigate the dying process according to the Bardo Thödol and how we can help our loved ones and ourselves when we face the most common and misunderstood process of the cycle of life. The Bardo Thödol was written by Padmasambhava, the Indian Tantric guru, who is credited with introducing Buddhism to Tibet in the 7th century. The book was likely composed in the 14th century. Since the early 20th century it has been translated into English and other Western languages many times. The first English language translation was made by Walter Evans Wentz, 1927, who titled the work, The Tibetan Book of the Dead, because of certain similarities he claimed to detect between it and the Egyptian Book of the Dead, for example, the existence of stages through which the deceased must travel before rebirth. A central tenet of all schools of Buddhism is that attachment to and craving for worldly things spurs suffering and unease, dukkha, which influence actions whose accumulated effects, or karma, bind individuals to the process of death and rebirth, samsara. Those who have attained enlightenment, bodhi, are thereby released from this process, attaining liberation, moksha. Those who remain unenlightened are drawn by karma, whether good or bad, into a new life in one of 6 modes of existence, as a sufferer in hell, enduring horrible torture, as a wandering ghost, driven by insatiable craving, as an animal, ruled by instinct, as a demigod, lustful for power, as a human being, balanced in instinct and reason, or as a god, deluded by their long lives into believing they are immortal. The Vajrayana, Tantric, Buddhism that emerged in Central Asia and particularly in Tibet developed the concept of the Bardas, the intermediate or transitional states that mark an individual's life from birth to death and rebirth. The period between death and rebirth lasts 49 days and involves 3 Bardas. The first is the moment of death itself. The consciousness of the newly deceased becomes aware of and accepts the fact that it has recently died, and it reflects upon its past life. In the second Bardo, it encounters frightening apparitions. Without an understanding that these apparitions are unreal, the consciousness becomes confused and, depending upon its karma, may be drawn into a rebirth that impedes its liberation. The third Bardo is the transition into a new body. While in the Bardo between life and death, the consciousness of the deceased can still apprehend words and prayers spoken on its behalf, which can help it to navigate through its confusion and be reborn into a new existence that offers a greater chance of attaining enlightenment. Reciting of the Bardo Thödol, usually performed by a lama, religious teacher, begins shortly before death, if possible, and continues throughout the 49-day period leading to rebirth. Bardo Thödol is an excellent book which helps us navigate through the dying process. Dying is part of life and for especially in Occidental and Western civilizations is hard to accept and assimilate. We live our life thinking that we are going to live forever when in reality nothing is granted for us, and every day that passes we are close to one of the things that we all have in common. Doesn't matter our social economical position, race, gender, ideology, religion, the fact is that we all going to die. The more you get familiar with that process, the easiest will be when we have to face it. The more grounded you are with this, though, the easier will be to navigate in those unknown waters, and that is exactly what this book helps us to understand. The constant fragility of life itself. Thank you for watching. If this content resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe and follow, and remember, the greatest give is to give people your enlightenment, to share it.